The Kansas City Chiefs are moving to another Super Bowl, but the conversation this week is not around the greatness of the Chiefs. It actually has nothing to do with this being the chance for them to win their third Super Bowl in a row. 100% of the sports media is talking about what I said they would be talking about last week. Mm-hmm. That is the officials and how they call Chiefs games. I just want to open this up. I put together some stats. Last week, I was the only one on this podcast. I stood alone and said, This has been an issue for multiple years. You challenged me to go back in our podcast, find where I talked about this in the playoffs last year, so I went ahead and did that. I also brought ahead some stats from past years with the Chiefs and the refs. I couldn't believe how blatant this was, but I just want to kind of read through some of this and then let me know what you think. And I also want to hear what you guys, because neither of you agreed with me last week. I think I might have changed some opinions based on watching this game. But yeah, the Chiefs won 32-29. Quest for their third straight Super Bowl. No one's talking about it. Since 2021, the Chiefs have had 0 playoff games with more penalties than the other team. That has not happened for any team that has made it in the playoffs 4 consecutive seasons so far. They're the first team to do that. 2 years ago in the Super Bowl with the Eagles, when we were talking about this is the first year it's happened, the ghost pass interference call that won them the game with 1:40 left on 3rd and 8. On Juju Smith-Schuster. That was the most talked about play of that game. I didn't remember it off the top of my head last week when we were on the podcast, but I went back and watched it and looked at the conversations around it. Yeah. Eagles fans still to this day are posting about this. It allowed the Chiefs to not kick a field goal with 1:40 left and give the ball back to the Eagles. It allowed them to advance 1st and goal. Then they ended up winning game-winning field goal 38-35 in that Super Bowl. Last year in the Super Bowl, missed holding calls and false starts were the narrative that was run with by Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers the entire game. Kyle Shanahan in the postgame and during the game repeatedly told the refs the Chiefs were holding throughout the game. Was a major media story. The Chiefs have actually never had a holding call under Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. I didn't think that was real. I went back and checked.
That is true.
That is the most insane stat I've ever heard in my entire life. This is his 6th Super Bowl he's going to? Right? 5th or 6th that he's going to.
He's been in 7 years.
He's been in 5. I thought he lost 2.
Lost 1.
Or lost one. So this is his 5th. So in 4 Super Bowls, 0 holding calls, crazy. I went back into our podcast to recap the last Super Bowl. You remember you were saying we never talked about it. We did. There was a defensive holding call on 3rd and 16 on the 49ers that allowed the Chiefs to get a first down at the end of the game. We talked about that call quite a bit. That was also a major narrative, the 49ers saying no holding offense, no holding defense, and the false starts. This past weekend, number 1 story on all social media and sports media, traditional sports media, after the game, directly after and today on Monday, whether it's McAfee Show, whether that's First Take, whether it's Scott Van Pelt after the game, is the refs. They were awful, and they blew the game for Buffalo. They just did. I mean, the hack job on 3rd down with the Dalton Kincaid spot, where they quickly rushed the spot, moved it back, and then the Bills, for some weird reason, I don't know why they ran hurry up for the QB sneak there, but that was clearly a first down by Dalton Kincaid. And then 4th down, it's a QB sneak. They give them the first down. They go to commercial for the review, come back, don't really talk about it a whole lot, say that they got called in to reverse it. Chiefs just snap the ball and keep moving. It's the
no measurement, no respawn.
No, it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And then the flag at the end of the game. I mean, they called a flag. The flag was thrown on the field.
On Kincaid?
No, at the end of the game, on 4th down, when Josh Allen threw the ball.
Kevin Harlan, the announcer, said there's a flag on the field.
It was thrown.
Also, Devin McCourty, after the game, said there was a flag thrown.
There was. Yeah, and it looked like it was near the line of scrimmage. I don't know what it was. Maybe hands to the face, whether they were pre-calling a holding for the Bills in case they caught it. Whatever it was, they picked that up, didn't really mention it again. Game's over. This is the same thing that happens over and over in the NFL.
Also, the Worthy catch was suspect.
That hit the ground, too, but on the replay, they kind of rushed it. But again, it's just the same thing with the Chiefs. It's the problem I've had for a while, and it's unfortunate for the league, I think, that this has to happen because now everyone's eyes are opened. It's literally the only story getting talked about right now. Last week we said, we really hope this doesn't happen in the AFC Championship, and it happened to such a level where nonstop, 24/7, you can turn on ESPN and it's getting talked about right now. Yeah, it's really unfortunate for the league. No one's talking about the greatness of the Chiefs. It's all about the refs.
Yeah, I agree, and it's especially a shame because that game was so good. I also feel like, it was pretty evident in both the championship games, at least in my opinion, that for pretty much all of the Commanders, Eagles, and then the first half, at least, it seemed like for this Chiefs-Bills game, that the refs they were just letting these boys play, and it was great. It was a really fun game to watch. And then when Tyler and I were talking about it earlier, it kind of felt to me like the analogy I used is if like they were playing a board game, the Chiefs were, duking it out, and then it was close. It was a fun roller coaster. And at the very end, when it actually mattered most, they just, decided to take away all the Monopoly money. And they were like, okay, well, we're going to win but we're going to finish out this game in a way that, isn't really fair, but we're all going to win. And, we had our fun for the other 3 quarters. And it's a shame because, like I said, this game was amazing. It was a super fun game to watch, but it feels like I felt like I was robbed of a even better, outcome or a game in general because of, the
I think a
third
lot of people
party
in sports will feel like that. So you've kind of flipped on the Chiefs and the ref thing from last week.
Yeah, for sure.
I think you're bringing up a different argument. They weren't. The argument was how prevalent it was. I don't think neither of them disagreed about how prevalent it was last year. I just thought the draft.
No, they did. No one said it was one of the main narratives for the Chiefs. You said that it's never been a conversation in any of the Chiefs Super Bowls. You said it's never been, and it was the leading one in the Eagles Super Bowl.
Okay.
I mean, I'd love to throw up the clip because I rewatched
No, like
the
I
episode.
remember now it was.
I rewatched the episode. That was
No, after 3 minutes we were talking, I was like, I think it's way more drastic this year than it's ever been, and there's by miles and miles and miles.
It's more
But
noticed,
it's
but it's
still
happened.
been,
It's
like,
happened
remotely
every
close.
one of the last 2 Super Bowls.
But it's because they
For the
win.
3
It
seasons.
happens to Brady when he was winning all the time. When he beat Mahomes twice, they talked about literally on one drive there were 3 penalty calls every single drive. And offsides on a pick that would have changed the game. It's every single.
No, I mean it just
it's
got passed
legacy
down
team.
from Brady.
No,
to
I'm saying it's like when teams win, it's just so bigger picture. Like the argument can't be that Andy Reid coaches his team perfect, and that's why they have less penalties. That's why they have less penalties than other teams. They also they look more like locked in. They are a better coach team. They have way more discipline on their team. That's why they could have less. I mean,
4
the
Super
Bills
Bowls
have won-
without a holding is almost impossible in football.
It is.
But I'd
impossible.
like to see the teams they played, how many holding penalties they had. Like if it's
Multiple?
if it's 3-0, it's like
That's huge.
if
That's
it's
30
one
yards.
per.
That's massive.
I'm saying if it's 1 per and one of them's just better, I don't think that's big a deal. If it's 1 per game out of the 4 Super Bowls, and one of them just I don't know, they're just not calling it. And they threw 3 flags in 4 Super Bowls.
Okay, so let's talk about. I know we're gonna disagree on the last couple years because I think it was a main narrative for the last multiple seasons. I know you don't agree. I look back. I think not only did we talk about it on the podcast, that is one of the
Well,
main
we talk
narratives.
about every year about.
Well, you said we never talked about it on the podcast last week. You said we didn't talk about that after the Super Bowl. I rewatched the episode we did.
About how. Oh yeah, we talked about every play. I'm saying you didn't talk about how prevalent it was that the Chiefs were with the refs.
I did. We did.
I think you mentioned a flag that seemed. You could say that flag was bogus, but it wasn't like this year. Every week was like, hey guys, I hope next year after the Super Bowl the Chiefs don't get the refs' hand and nut every single week because they're with the refs.
I feel
Those
like
are
the
two
We
different
didn't have a
arguments.
podcast during the Eagles Chiefs Super Bowl, but that was literally the talk about that Super Bowl.
yeah I
They
feel like
gave the Chiefs. They let them run out the clock and kick a field to win the game with a ghost PI.
there was a
It's
lot
the
of-
same thing at the end of every game. It happened
God.
this week with the Bills. As far as this week, refs were fine.
Josh Allen had the chance to win the game.
Were the refs fine this week?
Dude, you know,
No,
I can
that's-
show you six different opportunities where the Chiefs didn't get a call. 2 face mask miss, a holding penalty miss, an illegal formation miss. I can show you a bunch, but I don't show you because
So
they
the refs,
win.
so the refs were fine.
No, there was a couple things where because that 4th down goal they
He
said
clearly crossed.
on the ruling on the field was short,
No, it
and they
wasn't.
didn't change. They didn't
Mike
overturn.
Pereira said he crossed that line.
I mean it's pretty.
But a ref,
That
they
was
can't overturn a
blatant.
close call.
Wait, the ruling wasn't short.
That's what they said on the final thing that the refs came out with. They said it was too close to overturn, which means on the field they couldn't. They had to.
I'm pretty sure they gave him a first down, and then they went and reviewed it on the field. They might have been. I think
whatever the
multiple refs called
refs
different
ruling
things.
came out, when they come out and say their mistakes, whatever they do, they said we couldn't have enough substantial evidence to overturn the play.
On 4th down, also on 3rd down, it was a first down. On 3rd down,
Correct.
That was first
Again,
down.
Bills.
that was
just
the Bills
call a
to hurry
timeout,
it up.
challenge,
Yeah.
whatever you want to fucking do.
That's
to
on the
do-
Bills.
If you think it's a first down, just get it. Try to go. The Bills are hurrying up to the line.
Wait, so
Sorry, a foot was missed and they put the ball down and called
Okay,
something. I
so
think that's a crazy
I agree
argument.
with that. I think that was
So
bad
the-
coaching on the Bills for
So
that.
the refs were fine in this game. This was not a case of the
The
refs.
Bills had
offense.
every chance to win. And I just think they could have won regardless. The refs didn't do anything that factored that big of a game for the Bills
That's
to win. In
just-
my opinion.
That's awful.
That's a
That's
weird
just
take.
it's my opinion. I just don't. I could pull up 5 different opportunities where Chiefs had calls that weren't called on them, and they had 1 less flag than the Bills, and 2 of the Bills' flags were meaningless. They're in the end zone after nothing. It was like whatever
I mean,
it
the
was.
Chiefs also declined 3 penalties on the Bills. So the Bills were penalized 4 more times than the Chiefs. The Chiefs just declined them.
But what does that matter?
What do you mean? I'm saying the refs threw the flag significantly more on the Bills than the Chiefs.
But I didn't get to look up how many times there was automatic first down for the Bills. It could have been 2 or 3 more. It's just so one-sided. And yeah, I see certain
It
ways.
is one-sided.
Yeah, I see certain ways where people see it, but when people become villains, it's just so that's all people Like, we don't even talk about the game anymore, which is crazy. Like,
Well,
like they had a chance to win. That's it. Simple. I understand shit happens.
Yeah, and
like
on the last play,
the Rams Saints.
And on the last play,
there was a flag, and they picked it up, and it just went away.
But how many times in games are there flags and refs review it or pick it up, or it doesn't matter?
On the last play of the game.
It was not the last play of the game. It wasn't
No,
even close.
on
They
the,
could have
sorry,
stopped the game.
It was like a
the
minute
Bills,
45
the
left.
Bills last play.
They
of
could
the
have played
game.
defense. There was plenty of times, 3 timeouts.
The Bills lost last offensive play of the game on 4th down. A flag was thrown, and it just quietly got picked up.
But what you're telling me, that's your point of view because you.
That's
think
not
the
my
Chiefs
point
is
of view.
villain.
That's a fact.
But
That's what happened.
No, what I'm telling you is why can't it be? It was a wrong flag thrown or a bad flag, or they talked and said it shouldn't have been a flag. Like that's crazy.
That's exactly what happened. They
No,
they
but I'm
looked
saying,
at each other.
So
and went,
but that's so crazy to me that you fairly can say that what your opinion is so right, but I can't say, oh, the million times I've seen flags thrown, they pick it up or talk about it, happens all the time.
I just no.
So I don't get how like my opinion can't be fair, but you're just saying because of something.
Everyone has their opinions. That's totally fine. I'm just saying. So your point of view is flags were not a main issue until
I don't think
this
the refs,
season.
out of all the games
in the
you guys
last
have been
couple
talking
years.
about, I don't think the refs changed this game. Bills had a chance to win. They lost on their own. 2 failed 2-point conversions, had a drive to win the game, had terrible play calling throughout the whole game, and I just think that Bills had a chance to win the game. I don't think it was.
All right, Mario, you were on Ryan's side last week.
yeah.
Do you agree with him still?
Do I agree with them in terms of?
How the refs called this game, how the ones in past years have been called?
I mean, I agree with the past years have been determined, or refs have been a big influence. It took just 2 seconds to kind of just go back and refresh my brain because last week wasn't really thinking about last. I think I did mention though, like
you mentioned the holding.
the holdings,
Yes.
and I remembered that. I couldn't remember the year before, and then all of a sudden when I saw Bradbury, Juju, it just like I didn't even need to see the play. I remember that as well. I don't know. To me, just this whole thing is just a shame that, I remember when Mahomes first came in the league, he was like the coolest dude ever, and we'd never seen a quarterback like him, and he's still the best quarterback. It just sucks that the refs are such a big influence in a lot of his games, and say what you will, whether you agree or disagree, the refs play a factor in a lot of Chiefs wins, especially in big games. The only time it didn't happen was against Tom Brady, and I mean, there's a whole laundry list of times that Brady was helped by refs as well.
For sure.
Or calls seem to go their way.
Yeah.
Way higher frequency than is what normal flags would go for in any other team.
Yep.
It's not even just about holdings or anything. It's just like behavior. Like I've never seen a player like I love Travis Kelce, like fan of Travis, but I don't know how he is like the one player in the league that can just like act the way he wants and they'll never be penalized.
With the
I remember last year in the AFC Championship, Zay Flowers, Lamar Jackson had a crazy scramble, throws it deep to Zay Flowers, makes a crazy catch, doesn't do anything besides when he stands up, he just stands and flexes as the Chiefs players down there taunting back 15 yards. Kelce can just do the same thing in the end zone when Mahomes runs for a touchdown and like get in DeMar Hamlin's face and flex on him.
The other team gets flagged.
The other team gets flagged.
Yeah.
Like there's just obvious things and you can try to shake your head and deny it and be like, oh, no, it's the refs. There's clear favoritism. Does that mean that that's the only reason the Chiefs win? No. It sucks because the Chiefs are such a good team. They're such a well-coached team. All those things are true. Mahomes is fantastic. He just takes control of a game, controls the tempo, gets the first downs. He's fantastic. But if there's ever, if it was called evenly, which I just don't think the games are, then I think these games, there'd be a few of these games where maybe Mahomes didn't win. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, I mean, I don't know how you can sit here and be like, that game, the refs had zero factor. That's just not possible. I don't think the refs, in terms of like moving the needle of like, like this game was won because of the refs, I would push back. I do think there was enough game that was played where the Bills had chances and the Chiefs did everything right. But I do think there were some big, obvious calls. Like Mike Pereira said, that was a first down. You know what I mean? Like the first initial ref who was watching the game had the spot a yard past the marker. Yep. Another ref comes back.
He walked in like this. It wasn't even a straight line.
No, he comes back and moves it back a yard.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, that's suspect. And then to not even like review it, And where they had it spot was so like egregiously far back from where you could clearly see Josh Allen at. At least re-spot it and measure it. No measurement, just next play. Like to me, it's just like unfair. That is just unfair. Also, for a Bills player to intercept the ball, and I get it, he's in the air, so he has an established possession or whatever.
Oh,
and then Worthy has one arm, and then the ball just hits the ground, and then it's somehow Worthy's catch.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. No review, and then Mike Pereira again. Like, I don't know how they have to fix Mike Pereira, who's in the NFL rules lead research analyst.
Yeah, you can't keep disagreeing.
How is he able to just look at that and review in 10 seconds and be like, no, I would disagree? Like, how is there no like chain of command? Like, hey, this is what the call in the field is. Mike, this is contested, or it's pretty controversial if we're gonna get this wrong. Like, just let's get your seal of approval. Like, I don't know. There's just a lot of weird things that happen with the Chiefs, and it sucks because a lot of these games are influenced by the refs. So
yeah. Also, one last thing that Tyler and I were talking about earlier too is I almost have less of a problem with like this whole narrative when like the Chiefs or any team is like actual like juggernaut teams that are just by and large the best in the league.
They are.
But
they're the best teams ever.
No,
assembled.
I disagree with that.
This
I mean,
year?
there's
This
so
Chiefs
many
team?
there's so many games that were won by within one score or whatever,
Because
less than
that's
4
the best
points.
Coach, best player.
But it's not even that.
but
it's in those close games they were getting a lot of like calls. But
Every
again,
single
it's
game.
there's the teams that with like the Tyreek Hill, the Travis Kelce in his prime, all of those teams when they're just cruising through the league and they might get some favorable calls. I care less because I'm like they're gonna beat anyone anyways. They're just the number one team. But when it's a juggernaut or a perennial number one MVP, like best player in the league, and he has an opportunity to be taken down, dethroned, and the league just goes, nope, we're gonna keep him as king. It feels lame.
He had a chance, 3 minutes left, and chose not to win.
That's
Regardless
not-
of how the game goes. Every game we talk about, every game I've ever watched, there's 14 penalties,
No,
14 calls that are wrong.
I agree with the chance at the
And
end.
maybe-
I mean, it's Josh Allen.
And maybe
he's not that
we're
guy.
not,
He
I'm not
can't get
arguing,
it done.
guys, that it isn't more heavily on the Chiefs. I think when teams are in the limelight, the Chiefs, like the Patriots used to be, when they're in the limelight 7 straight years in the biggest moments, things are way more important because they're there every single year. If any other team does it every once in a while, it doesn't matter. They're there every year, and it might favor one side, but I just think
But what
that
about the
it's-
frequency? I get what you're saying.
Because they're there every year. Of
No,
course
no,
you're
no,
gonna see
no,
it
no,
every
no,
year.
not that. I'm saying frequency of calls, right? So I get what you mean about their calls, or the magnitude of each call is going to be so much bigger because any call in the AFC Championship, any call in a Super Bowl, it's just like the biggest stage ever. But I'm saying just the pure frequency of calls. If you just look at those games, how it's like so astronomically one-sided against like opposing teams to the Chiefs. Like, what is your defense to
Well,
that?
because there's been 3 games, which, in your guys' opinion, I'm not going to argue for myself, that have been the biggest factors of referees for Mahomes' career in the playoffs. There's been 3 big games. You said the Niners Super Bowl, which was the 3rd and 16, the Eagles Super Bowl on the flag, and then this game. Let's not act like...
I'm not saying this game.
Oh, I'm saying most people will say the world, right?
Well,
That-
I think
all the other games were never close and nothing unfair in the playoffs. They're
No,
all
I would
versus
say I would have the
Bros-
Brady AFC Championship when they intercepted the ball and then they called a ghost.
No, but
offsides.
Mahomes got screwed. I'm talking about when Mahomes is on the top of it.
I also-
That was the only. There's only been 3 games. All the other games, like against Burrow, those were
I
completely
disagree.
fair.
No, but what I'm saying is, we talked about this last week against the Texans.
Dude,
Let's
not act like the Texans were going to beat the Chiefs. They were destroying them in every second.
This is when you go. The Chiefs this year won 15 games. Mike is completely right. They had the highest amount of wins. They won every single game that came down the wire. It was a story the entire year, every game this year, about the calls in the game. They were the most lopsided call team literally ever.
One of those games actually prevented a team being in the playoffs, which was the Bengals. There was a 4th down where the Chiefs had 30 seconds left. 4th down, Mahomes
Wasn't it the
overthrows
PI?
it, and they call a PI.
Yeah.
When
No.
Mike Pereira looks and goes, I don't know how that's PI.
I mean, it's every single game. But like this season, I completely agree with Mike that it's this season. So many of their wins were influenced by the refs that they shouldn't have had home field advantage in the playoffs. And then when they do, the Texans outgained them, out everything them.
The
And
Texans,
I
I don't
have
have
to do with anything.
I'm just talking about last week. We're talking
yeah.
about individual games,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So last week, the Chiefs won by 9, 11 points. I don't remember what the score was. They
was
won
9,
by...
but they took a
Yeah,
safety.
9 points. And they took a safety. Yeah. sure, you say the Chiefs are a better team, they would have won. The refs heavily influenced that game. The number one story after the game was how the refs.
The number one story after every game was the refs. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, I completely agree with that. I'm glad you brought that up.
That's what I'm saying.
No.
You are staring it. You're waiting for it to happen.
No, I'm not. I really don't want it to happen.
I think every game, even in the national championship, there was targeting calls, there was holding penalty. I was saying every time, how is this not a holding penalty? Ohio State hasn't got a holding penalty. This makes sense. I'll say a million things, but at the end of the day, I'm not waiting for it. I'm not waiting for it.
I'm not waiting for it. No, Mario's completely right. The frequency at which they have less penalties than the other team. No holdings ever in a Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes, what was it? Are 0 playoff games with more penalties than their opponents.
I'm saying 3 of those games are super factors where the refs completely won the game.
This is more than 3 games.
No, it's every game.
That's
what do you mean?
It's a lot of games, especially in the regular season. But
I'm taking the playoffs.
They're
going to get to 14 or 15 wins every year.
They wouldn't have this year. But
only talking
since
playoff
2021,
I'm not even bringing up regular season.
Since 2021, they've never had more penalties than their opponents.
that is playoffs.
That's all in the playoffs.
But I'm saying, why can't you be like this game where it was 6 versus 5? Why isn't it just one team is more disciplined? Why can't I literally argue that?
Because
one
this
team
team it wasn't. You watch the game. I mean, to sit there and
Patrick
watch
Mahomes
what's
better
been happening.
than the MVP, and Sean McDermott got outcoached by a mile. It's really not complicated.
To sit there and watch this continue to happen every year and just pretend it doesn't exist.
I never said that. That wasn't the argument. I'm saying it's getting blown up in the limelight. The biggest thing. I never once said it's not a thing.
Do you think there's a reason it's getting blown up?
Correct, because people are sick of the same fucking shit. Mahomes going
With the
all
refs.
year.
It has nothing to do with Mahomes. Dude, if he's just winning games and everything isn't.
He played better than the other team.
Okay,
no argument, no refs. He played better than the other team by a mile.
Here's the thing is, and this
they
might be
stopped multiple drives with questionable calls on the Bills.
And they didn't.
And the spot thing
and they could have called multiple flags against the Bills to continue Chiefs drives, but they didn't.
But no, what I'm saying is you can't argue that if it's what's clearly a first down and the review says is a first or whatever Mike Pereira is saying is a first down, and then they just let the game go, they take the lead. Like there's like very simple things.
They're on the 42-yard line. That's just crazy to me.
Yeah,
why can't they turn the ball over? Why can't they fumble? Why can't they go 3 and out? Why can't they punt?
They scored 29 in regulation. They were moving on this defense the entire game. I mean, but it's like to say that doesn't impact the game, and then to say. You just said the refs have no impact.
Not zero.
It's
not as much.
You just said
it's not as much.
You just said the refs had zero impact on the result of this game.
I don't think they had zero impact. I might have misspoke. Obviously, they had impact. I'm not retarded. But I'm saying the outcome of the game, the Bills could have won. I don't think the refs were the reason the Bills lost the game. That's simple as that.
And I don't think that's the
only reason. No, they're not the only reason.
I think that's...
I don't think that's the craziest take. I agree with Ryan. I think there's a lot of worse games that have been decided by refs for the Chiefs.
Plenty.
I'm just saying,
and many other teams.
The last couple years for sure in the playoffs. Yes.
I'm just saying, just pure volume of calls against opponents that play the Chiefs. It's just so statistically improbable. Where it's like something. I don't know. It just seems conspiratorial.
Dude, this might be crazy, and this
I'm sure
might
the
be...
Patriots had the same thing because they were just a dynasty with the best coach of all time. I'm sure they had what you said, where there were many stats where
there's never been the Patriots didn't have
it wasn't 4 consecutive years.
4 consecutive years. They've never had one game with the opponent having less penalties. No holding calls in a Super Bowl. Being in multiple Super Bowls never happened in NFL history. I mean, it's like
I can look through other stats and give you crazy stats of there's maybe been 3 Super Bowls where a team didn't have holding penalties instead of 4, or like they might not call penalties in the biggest game. They might have tried to keep it chalk, which they normally do.
No, they call penalties on the other team. I'm saying for the Chiefs.
All I'll say is my closing thought about this is it seems to me that referees are infallibly biased, which is just, maybe it's human nature. It is what it is. But I would like personally to see one time the Chiefs win everything despite rather than the Chiefs win with the help of. And it's like, if you could prove to me once that the world is kind of against you, but you're just better and you're actually you deserve it, then you know what? Prove me wrong. I think it'll settle all of my arguments and doubts in my head. But when we're in situations like this, where that hasn't been the case, and it seems like there's blatant just bias calls, whether it be the Xavier Worthy catch or no catch hit the ground, whether it be the Dalton Kincaid flag picked up, or whether it be the first down on 3rd or 4th. It's I would just like to see the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes win when things aren't going their way, because it seems like the refs are going to be biased one way or the other. That's how I feel.
They have multiple times, but
in the playoffs.
correct. And
What year?
his first year when he beat the Niners.
No, those drives were stopped when they were losing by 10 points due to ref penalties.
What are you talking about?
So the 40 Jimmy Garoppolo throws the first down, and then they probably would have wasted a lot of time, and then they called a holding, which backed them
Which
up
was a
10
holding
yards.
penalty.
I mean, there's a holding penalty every play. So.
But like, then what's the argument? If it is a holding, all right, yeah, it'll just be a
No, I mean, it
Holding
was
is
like-
weird because
that,
it's,
that was an unbelievable team where he a perfect
it was
team brought to
it
the
was
playoffs.
insane by Mahomes.
And the year when they beat the Niners, you can call the holding, I don't know, the 3rd and 16 holding play. He played amazing and went down to the wire and went to overtime, and Niners chose the wrong decision to win the game. Like,
No, the other team, the Chiefs are the best coach team in the league, without a doubt.
think everyone agrees.
Andy Reid's
That's
fantastic.
why I say it's a shame.
Mahomes fantastic. Yeah,
This
it's why
overshadows
it's a
this,
bummer
yeah.
that this happens because, I mean, Patrick Mahomes at one point, pre-Britney everything, was one of the most likable players in at the NFL.
Patrick
Then people
Mahomes.
started like trying to find reasons to hate on his wife or his brother with the TikToks or whatever. I don't think I've seen a switch on this like I have the last couple weeks. I mean, last week on the pod, I'll close with this, like, because I know we've kind of been going on and on about this, but last week on the pod, every single one of us said we really don't think the refs will be a conversation. We think this is in such a
They'll let
spotlight.
them go.
The NFL cannot let this happen. Like, it's almost so important that the NFL can't let the number one conversation about this weekend just be on the refs again, on the Chiefs. And unfortunately, that is the only headline going around both, social media and sports media. So for the
crazy.
Super Bowl, we'll say it again. I really, really hope, I'm kind of like Mike here, I really hope this isn't the main conversation, because if they win a 3-point game and there's calls at the end that do it, then
No, they will.
they're
I was
gonna
saying, if they
turn
win,
off.
They will.
if they win with no calls and it's a good game, is this chalk because the 2 previous games had referee penalties?
I think in
and
a
the
lot
whole
of,
season.
I mean, I think in a lot of people's
Those
eyes it
lot
will
of
be, regardless. I think they've done such irreparable damage to this point.
I agree.
I'm saying so. There's no. I'm saying I'm saying there's nothing that'll matter.
I think this
There's
season
literally
I
this
think
season
nothing
is
that
I
matters.
know
perfect.
he says there is.
I think it'll.
You just said it doesn't matter.
No,
No,
for-
he said it'll be chalk.
I said in a lot of people's minds, they think the Chiefs shouldn't be here regardless.
I'm asking you.
What would I think?
If the Chiefs win 42-21, obviously no
Then
penalties.
they're way better than the Eagles. Yeah.
But does it matter? They got there because of what you're saying. These terrible ref calls, a lucky
I
year.
mean, yeah, that's obvious.
So does the Super Bowl matter? Is it luck?
It's
that they got
obviously a
there?
huge deal. They won 3 Super Bowls, but there will always be an asterisk around the season for the Chiefs. I get, like, not for me. Like, the way people view this Super Bowl will have connotations about how the season was reffed.
I agree.
Because of the way it's being
I think
talked
the
about.
whole
agree.
3-year run will, but
I also
Okay.
do. They're gonna
That's
look back at
crazy.
it, but yeah,
I
let's-
think one of the best
this
quarterbacks.
season is
one of
no,
the
if
best
they
coaches
win
of all
without
time.
of it.
without influence, but
Yeah.
But it won't matter
They won't.
because even if they do, you guys.
no,
said
if they
this year-
do, I will agree. I'll
There's
be
a
like,
flag
okay, you know
in
what?
every Super Bowl. Look at the Rams
But
Bengals or PI on
we
TV
got-
against every single Super Bowl. There's a flag.
we're never gonna agree here. Let us know in the comments how
side
you
you
feel. What
Yeah,
side are you
pick a
on? We could
side,
probably
pick a
talk about this for
side.
5 hours. Obviously, it looks like 3 of us feel one way. Ryan's very strong. It doesn't have as big of an impact. But let us know what you think in the comments. We are talking Super Bowl all next week, so stay locked in with us. This is going to be a conversation coming up. We're picking the winner. Are the Chiefs going to three-peat?
Chiefs and the Zebras.